Buyers are in full control of the Abbotsford real estate market. Right now, buyers have 389 detached homes to choose from. Months of inventory for the Abbotsford Detached and the East Abbotsford Detached market is climbing and sales are coming down. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through the latest statistics for your Abbotsford real estate market. Let's dive in. Let's start here. The sales to active ratio for the Abbotsford Detached market in May was around 15%, which indicates we're in balanced territory. And that was down from the 16% that we saw in April. And months of inventory for your Abbotsford Detached market sits around 8 months. And that's up from the 7 months that we saw in April. And if we kind of zoom out, we can kind of see since beginning of the year, this number has been slowly climbing up. In May, we saw 57 sales, and that's down from the 60 in April. If you look across, folks, you'll see the sales number isn't that bad. And this is one of the most sales we've had since February of 2024. The average sale price is also down month over month. In May, the average sale price sat around $1,127,000, and that's down from the $1,170,000. I don't really pay attention to this number, and here's the reason why. When you have homes that are in the luxury market and you have a couple of sales per month, that can affect this number right here. So a better indicator for the average sale price is looking at market activity in your neighborhood. Right now, the active number of listings across the Abbotsford Detached market sits at 389, and that's up from the 378 that we saw in April. And if we zoom out again, in January, the number was close to 284. So month over month, we're seeing a steady rise in the active listings. In May, we had 149 new listings, and that's down from the 165 that we saw in April. Days on market is 18, and that's down from the 21 that we saw in April. Homes that are listed at market value and show well are selling around 95.4% of the original sale price, and not much change over that. Next, let's look at the East Abbotsford Detached market. In May, the East Abbotsford Detached market represented balanced territory with the sales to active ratio of 16.9%. This is down from the 25% that we saw in April. In May, months of inventory for the East Abbotsford Detached market sat around 6 months, and that's up from the 5 that we saw in April. So if months of inventory in May is around 6 months of inventory, that means 1 out of 6 homes listed each month is selling and 5 out of 6 homes are not selling. In May, we saw 27 sales, and that was down from the 34. If you zoom out, folks, and see this number, you'll see for the East Abbotsford Detached market, we usually average about 25 to 30 sales per month. So we're right at the average. Right now, the active number of listings sits at 160, and that's up from the 135 that we saw in April. So inventory is slowly going up. In May, we saw 74 new listings, and that was up from the 69 that we saw in April. In May, days on market was 27, and that was up from the 16 in April. The most activity that we're seeing for detached homes here in the East Abbotsford market is the price range between 900 to 1 million. That means buyers are actively looking at detached homes around the McMillan area, where the older homes that are 35 to 40 years old right now are selling anywhere between $950 to $1 million. The average sale price for an East Abbey detached home again sits around $1,090,000, and that's down from the $1,187,000. As I mentioned beginning of this video, I don't really pay much attention to this because it's not a real indicator of what the value of your home might be, just because when you have sales in a higher price bracket for homes in Augustin or on Eagle Mountain, that number can affect this number right here. Moving on to the Abbotsford Townhome market. In May, the Abbotsford Townhome market also represented a balanced market with a sales to active ratio of 18%, and that's up from the 13% that we saw in April. Months of inventory also sits around 8 months, and there isn't much change to that month over month. This was the biggest change that we saw. In May, there was 44 sales, and that's up from the 32 that we saw in April. What this means, folks, is out of all the markets, we're seeing a little bit more activity in the Abbey townhome market, which is good news. The average sale price is around $646,000, and that's down from the average sale price in April that was around $675,000. In May, we saw 95 new listings, and that's down from the 111 that we saw in April. Right now, the number of active listings sits around 245. Days on market is 30. Moving on to the East Abbotsford townhome market. In May, the East Abbotsford townhome market represented a seller's market with a sales to active ratio of 29.4%, and that's up from the 24% that we saw in April. Months of inventory right now is around 5 months. Again, that means every month 1 out of 5 townhomes listed in East Abbotsford are selling and 4 out of 5 are not selling. And month over month, there's not much change there. In May, we saw 15 sales, and that's up from the 13 that we saw in April. And March obviously had the highest number of 18, but even then, that's only a difference of 3 sales, so that's good news. Active listings right now sits at 51, and that's down from the 55 that we saw in April. In May, we saw 21 new listings, and that's down from the 26 that we saw in April. Days on market is 45, and that's up from the 24 that we saw in April. Let's move on to the Abbotsford condo market. In May, the Abbotsford condo market represented balanced territory with a sales to active ratio around 12%. And when we compare the sales to active ratio from May to April, we'll notice there's not much change. Months of inventory right now is around 8, and that's actually gone up month over month. Right now, the average sale price for an Abbotsford condo is around $410,000, and that's slightly up from the average sale price that we saw in April, which was around $378,000. In May, we had 118 new listings, and that's slightly down from the 121 we saw in April. Right now, the active listings for condos also sits at 323, so that means buyers have a lot of inventory to choose from, and that's up from the 303 sales that we saw in April. Days on market is 31, and that's down from the 34 days on market we saw in April. Next thing that I want to touch on briefly is interest rates. In May, we had a Bank of Canada announcement where they said they were going to maintain their overnight rate at 2.25%, and they weren't going to make any changes. And what we're seeing since that, folks, is fixed rates have actually gone up for mortgages because the bond yields are up. The main reason bond yields have gone up is because of inflation, and that's mostly due to the ongoing war in Iran. The next Bank of Canada announcement is on June 10th. Moving on, we want to talk about a couple of things that are impacting buyer psychology and decision making right now. Right now, when buyers are getting pre-approved and are getting ready to upgrade to a detached or a townhome, there's a couple of things that are impacting their decision making. The first one is global uncertainty right now with the geopolitical stuff going around. Mainly, it's connected to the Iran war. The next thing is uncertainty with interest rates. Right now, buyers don't know if interest rates are coming up or going down, but what I can tell you from the front line, folks, is over the last month we have seen fixed interest rates for mortgages go up, and what I'm hearing from the senior mortgage specialist on my team is that these fixed rates might even go up a little bit more before the end of the year. The other thing is job uncertainty, and the last thing is the CUSMA trade renewal that's hanging over the head of Canada. Right now we're entering a period where Canada, Mexico, and the US will enter a review of the CUSMA trade agreement this fall. One thing that I can tell you, folks, is if we can get some sort of clarity on this trade agreement, this would be a huge boost to our provincial and federal economy. Right now, the decision-making period for buyers is a bit longer, and rightfully so. So this starts from when buyers get pre-approved and when they enter the market. Right now, we are seeing in our business and on the front lines as buyers are taking a bit longer, and rightfully so. But there is one thing that helps buyers making a better decision when it comes to a home that they find. We recently did a video on this that you could click above, and essentially what that is when my buyers find a townhome or a detached home that they like, one thing that we are providing them is a home evaluation. And this home evaluation gives them a breakdown of the recent sales, but more importantly, the active listings that are listed, and that's the best comparison to that home that they are interested in. And once they have that information, they can make an informed decision on what they feel like is a fair offer. Here's the reason reason why this can be helpful, folks. If my buyers are writing an offer on an overpriced listing, we can share these stats and home evaluation with the listing agent. I'll walk them through the recent sales, active listings, and kind of give a breakdown of why my seller made that offer they did. Then the listing agent can go back to the sellers and sit down with them and present that data alongside that offer. We've been using this for the last 2 years and we have found it extremely helpful. And in some cases where sellers have been overpriced, what we have found is the sellers have accepted my buyer's original offer price because of this information. Right now, if you're trying to upgrade from a condo to an Abbotsford townhome, there is a lot of uncertainty that you will face. That's the truth. But there are a couple of things that can help you determine if this is the right time, or more importantly, if this is the right townhome for you. That's why you need to watch my next video, because I walk you through a list of townhomes that you want to avoid. Drop a comment and let me know your thoughts on your Abbotsford real estate market. I'm Dhindsa, and I'll see you next time.